And not only is it the class, you've got now at Fordham 3 additional masters in analytics. You got the Center for Digital Transformation, which has been launched, and you have access to business leaders in the greatest city in the world. We just heard from Walt, we heard from policing. So for the students here, it's statistics on steroids. I mean, it's analytics, right? It's Smarter Planet. So we have a great opportunity to capitalize on that, on those resources nearby. Now, speaking of being on steroids, indulge me, Murray. We have 420, 430, thereabouts, 1,000 people in IBM. Of that crowd, 3,000 are IBM research scientists. So it's a very small, select group of people. And fortunately, about 10 or 15 years ago, during our transformation with our CEO, then CEO Lou Gerstner, what he did was open the door to the marketplace for our research community. In years past, when I started back in the early 70s, our research community was valuable then, but they didn't have market access, quite honestly. They didn't talk as frequently to our customers. Today, they are vital members of the community that deals with the marketplace. Murray Campbell is a research scientist and has been in IBM for many, many years. So he's got a point of view here, I think, that will be valuable, not only from a research perspective, looking in at the science, but also at the application of technology skills and analytic skills in the marketplace. So, Murray, if you don't mind sharing your point of view, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks very much. So I think there's a huge opportunity in this skills area, just taking advantage of big data and analytics. Now, think about any large company and the workforce that they have. To be honest, there's very limited understanding of what the company knows about the people in their workforce. What they know, who they know, their special skills and expertise, their what projects they've worked on, their experiences. There's some demographic data, and certainly we have that in our systems. But this more fuzzy social stuff is not being captured and used very well. So I think there are big opportunities to apply analytics to this explosion of social data and get a better understanding of what the people in the company actually know, and when it can be applied to all sorts of problems. For example, when you're trying to put together a team to take on a new project, finding the ideal team is sort of guesswork these days. It's based on who knows who, what they worked on before. I think there are lots of opportunities to look at the data and apply data-driven approaches to understand what people know, where they should be working, what are the trends, what skills where there are gaps in skills, where there are gluts in skills, and try and refocus the workforce in the right direction so that 3 years from now or 5 years from now, we'll have the right set of skills to meet what we expect the demand will be. So the whole application, you could call it knowledge analytics or workforce analytics, but I think this is a huge emerging area that takes advantage of the big data that's coming out on social media. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Murray. We're getting toward the end, so I'm going to look to you for questions. And if we don't get questions from you, I'm going to ask the panel to ask you guys questions. Evan is another faculty member here at Fordham, a colleague of RP, and he's been focusing heavily on analytics in the business school as well. So, Evan, would you share your point of view?
Yeah, just make a couple of points. So basically, what's happening today is with the digital transformation that is affecting everything in business and society, a side effect of that is that there are lots of data being created. And for business, data and analytics is the new source for competitive advantage. Many people have written about that. So now we are at the beginning of this age. Kind of companies that focus on data and analytics, they will be at the forefront, they will gain competitive advantage, okay? Maybe 5 years after now, maybe it's going to be not an issue of competitive advantage, it's going to be an issue of competitive necessity. So everybody will need to have analytics and good data skills so they survive, so they remain in business. So based on that, kind of there is a new data ecosystem being created. And on the one hand, you have companies like IBM, which basically I was very amazed by the strategy I saw earlier, the presentation by Karen Paris. So they are well positioned kind of to offer solutions and be like a hub in this ecosystem of data and analytics. And on the other hand, you have all the other companies that they need these solutions and they need these services. And we're talking now about mainstream companies, and we're talking also about startup companies like that they create business models and they need data skills and they need to leverage the data to make money. Okay, so all this like creates a landscape where there is a huge opportunity for employment. Okay? So I was at the talk by the CEO of General Electric like a few years back, and an MBA student asked him what would be his advice to students, and he said, "Oh, my advice to students for the long term is to go and learn Chinese." Okay? So based on our discussion today, I was thinking that maybe our advice to students is go and learn the new language, which is the language of analytics. Okay? And this language is multidisciplinary. It has to draw from many skills like descriptive statistics, more advanced statistics and analytics, which are things that I like because I use in my research. I do lots of modeling in game theory and simulation. Also, you know, these advanced skills will be a fruitful career for all of, you know, the students. Okay? So that would be like my main point, like to students to learn this language and to think in terms of their skills as a portfolio. So they need to create a portfolio, like in investment, you create a portfolio of skills. So they need to create a portfolio of skills, and maybe to invest some of the skills like learning good statistics. This takes a lot of effort, but it's a good investment. Things that take lots of effort to learn, it's a good investment and differentiate you in the marketplace. Yeah, that would be my main point for now.
Okay, thanks, Devin. You know, you mentioned the need to learn Chinese. You know, this analytics focus at Florida is not just in the School of Business. It's interdisciplinary. It's across the university, which is good. And that's what we would recommend at other schools as well. So the Masters in Analytics, School of Business, School of Arts and Sciences. We have Dr. Frank Su here, who happens to speak Chinese. So if the students need to learn Chinese in analytics, he could do that as well. So I'm looking down at Ruben, and I haven't had the pleasure of knowing Ruben up until now, but I'm glad he's on the job for us. I can only say that because I come from a family of 9. One of my older brothers was a New York City policeman back in the 60s and 70s, so he was on the job. He didn't have any of the technology that you talked about, and when he came home at night, we used to just bless ourselves that he was able to avoid gunshots and stabbing and all that kind of stuff. But I'm delighted to see that technology has made its way into the police force, that we have the real-time crime center down in New York City. That's just wonderful as far as I'm concerned. Now, you gave us a wonderful presentation, but based upon hearing what the other panelists have said on the need for skills, the types of individuals that from your experience, is needed in New York City, whether it's in the police department or in the other agencies in the city of New York, what observations would you make?
Well, we have 2 issues in terms of skills, at least 2 issues in the police department, probably other city agencies. I think now we're probably in a better position now because the private sector economy and unemployment has allowed us to keep some of our more technical, proficient, and probably better employees. But we also have a lot of employees that are still here from our legacy systems, right? So that we never invested in their training, never invested in their development. So we're kind of supporting, you know, I think someone once said in our organization, the Barney Miller technologies as well as the CSI. So
that's a pretty wide spectrum.
And that makes it difficult for us in terms of usually retaining the good people, but because of the economy, we haven't had that issue. But also, I also mentioned before that I've been in the same position for 6 years. And there was an opportunity where I was almost transferred, but that was rescinded because of they felt, you know, the problems we were going to have in our bureau if I left that position. Because I think at the managerial rank, you know, even, you know, our database administrators, they're not inclined at looking at it from a business perspective. Then the combination of that business knowledge and the analytics combines what really helps us derive value. And at the police department, I think those type of skills are lacking. I hire project managers, directors within our organization. And it's very hard to find people that have both of them combined.
Yeah, so interesting. Like when the IT industry was in its infancy, and many of the folks in the audience were probably part of it, it was going like this. But growth is sort of attenuated over the past couple of years, economic malaise and everything else. When you look forward, with, in my opinion, with the Smarter Planet, there's more and more applications and opportunity to reignite growth. And without the right skills, as Murray was alluding to earlier, I mean, people can't compete. Companies can't compete. Nations can't compete. So institutions like Fordham and other institutions in New York and around the country, as they create new curricula, like we're doing here now, we're going to provide students with the skills to be able to compete. Now, given that, how would you fill in the sentence that I'd hire you tomorrow if you had these kind of skills? I mean, what would you tell the students?
Well, I mean, I would tell them definitely. I mean, I went to Columbia University, had their business program. Knowledge of the business and improve efficiencies in business, I think is very important. But they need to have the business analytics background. They need to have a firm grasp on IT, on database, on information processing. I think it just goes hand in hand now in terms of being able to succeed. It's one of the reasons I changed my major when I was in school from criminal justice to information systems, because I kind of saw the writing on the wall there, and I'm in a position now, a better position in my organization. I think they can be in better positions for their interviews or within their future careers if they continue to develop both their business expertise, their business success, as well as supporting that IT development, and not to shy. Many people shy away from it. They don't want to deal with it.
Right.
They ignore it.
Right.
We're coming to a point now where you can't ignore that anymore. If you don't have that skill, you're not going to get that promotion. You're not going to get that next job.
Yes.
So I think some people still have their head in the sand, but you got to get your head up out of the sand and learn those techniques and learn those and differentiate yourselves from the other candidates for those positions.
Okay, and we refer to that in our business as T-shaped skills. We have other questions we can ask here, but let me stop and pause and invite questions from the audience. This is meant to be a conversation. Yes, sir.
I'd like to propose something just a little different than what we've been hearing. Maybe you don't want to address it. My name is Ben Compain, the business schools here. Over the years, there's been lots of talk about analytics and different names for it over the years in IT. And one of the things that has held back the use of analytics has been concerns about privacy and having databases that can talk to each other. We hear talk about Google data coming together with DoubleClick, and Facebook has all this data. Over the years, the CIA's databases weren't allowed to talk to the FBI's. The IRS used to have lots of different databases that weren't allowed to talk. We have HIPAA requirements in the healthcare field. So what I really want to ask is, while we have the conditions to do all these great analytics and the power to do it, do you guys see any limits on the other side of current or potential regulation that is going to perhaps hold back or prevent us from doing some things that could be done?
I used to work at the Census Bureau, and one of the big things that was an issue there was that you have all these different surveys that the Census Bureau conducts. A lot of the government data that you read about in the newspapers and so forth has all been collected by the Census Bureau. And so we have many different lists of people that they contact and many different what we call sampling frames, lists of the population that you're targeting. The issue is that if you have all these duplicate lists, you can save a lot of money and effort by trying to make one master list and use them across different surveys. And one of the problems is the privacy issue. The IRS has a very good list of people and their tax information and so forth. But because of the laws and so forth, you can't easily combine them with the other lists that the Census Bureau could use to make things a lot more simpler. So yes, legislation and privacy issues will be something that has to be tackled, and new sort of developments have to be made in order to make sure that we protect people's privacy and we get the efficiency gains.
I think there's also an opportunity for technological approaches here. In particular, there is recent research in the area of doing data analysis, data analytics on data that is encrypted. Doing it while it is encrypted, without having to ever unencrypt it. And I think this is relatively new, but I think there's a lot of work going on in this space. And if we can push that a little further, I think that will make us all feel, sleep a lot easier, knowing that the kinds of analysis will be done without ever identifying specific individuals, staying in the encrypted state.
And let me just add, I worked with the NYPD with Karen at the beginning of this, and you have to be very, I think, diligent about building the right value proposition. So in the beginning, no one wanted to share their data. Once they saw the power of what this solution could provide, I mean, there were the county now and the state coming forward and saying, we're willing to share your data. The power of this is so significant that, in fact, we need to get over some of these hurdles. Now, there's no silver bullet for this. I mean, legislation will continue to be a problem. I think people, individual businesses' IP and what they view as their differentiator will continue to, I think, drive some of this. But as we see more and more of these solutions really driving significant benefit. In the healthcare arena, it's a perfect example. In what we've done in local governments with some of these traffic solutions where no one ever wanted to talk to each other because they couldn't get outside their normal view of what life was for them, and that this would be not a competitive advantage. In fact, when you unleash it, it sometimes provides even more of a competitive advantage for them. So I think we just need to work on the success stories, proving out that by sharing this information, it can create tremendous productivity improvements, decrease costs, and really bring value to all the key stakeholders. So.
Walt, after spending a couple of decades in the medical industry, health industry, do you have any enlightenment from their perspective on the privacy issue? And then we'll move to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned HIPAA. I mean, it's well documented, but it's up to interpretation. And I will tell you that there is a balance. You want to protect